The pregnancy test in Lena's trembling hand shows 2 pink lines, and the father is already gone. 6 weeks ago, her husband walked out for another woman. Now, broke and alone in Manhattan, she's carrying a secret that could destroy what's left of her life. But when a stranger appears in the darkness of an empty park, a man with dangerous eyes and a voice like smoke, everything changes. He knows her pain, he sees her fear, and he's about to make her an offer that will pull her from one kind of darkness into another. Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and comment your city below so I can see how far this story reaches across the world. The fluorescent lights of the 24-hour pharmacy burned like accusation, casting harsh shadows across Lena Morales' face as she stood frozen in the feminine care aisle. Her fingers trembled as they closed around the small pink box, the cheapest pregnancy test on the shelf, because that's all she could afford now. 27 years old, and this is where life had brought her. The cashier barely glanced at her as he rang up the purchase, his expression dulled by years of late-night transactions and other people's emergencies. Lena handed over the crumpled bills, money she'd scraped together from tips, the last of her dwindling savings, and shoved the box deep into her purse like contraband. Outside, Manhattan's November wind cut through her thin jacket with vindictive precision. She pulled the fabric tighter around her body, though she knew it wouldn't help. Nothing helped anymore. Not since Adrian left. 6 weeks, she thought, her breath forming ghost-white clouds in the freezing air. 6 weeks since he walked out, and my period is 3 weeks late. The subway ride back to her studio apartment in Washington Heights felt like descending into hell, each station bringing her closer to the moment of truth she'd been avoiding for days. The train car rattled and swayed, and Lena gripped the pole with white knuckles, fighting the nausea that had become her constant companion. A pregnant woman, maybe 7 or 8 months along, sat across from her, one hand resting protectively on her swollen belly. Lena looked away quickly, her throat tightening. No, please, no. But she already knew, deep down, in that place where women's intuition lives and breathes, she already knew. Her apartment was exactly as she'd left it that morning, small, cold, and achingly empty. The heating had been cutting in and out for weeks, and her landlord, Mr. Castellano, had made it crystal clear that repairs weren't his priority, not when she was already 2 weeks late on rent. The eviction notice was still taped to her door, stark white against the chipped paint. Final warning: vacate by November 30th. That gave her 8 days. Lena locked the door behind her and leaned against it, closing her eyes against the tears that threatened to spill. She wouldn't cry. Not yet. She'd done enough crying over the past 6 weeks to last a lifetime. The pregnancy test felt like a lead weight in her purse. She made herself walk to the bathroom, made herself open the box with shaking hands, made herself read the instructions she'd already memorized from staring at similar boxes in the pharmacy aisle for 3 consecutive nights before finally gathering the courage to buy one. 3 minutes, the package said. Results in 3 minutes. Lena set the timer on her phone and placed the test on the edge of the sink, face down. She couldn't watch it, couldn't see those lines appear, or not appear, in real time. Instead, she sank down onto the cold bathroom floor and hugged her knees to her chest, remembering. I can't do this anymore, Lena. Adrian's voice had been quiet, almost apologetic, as he'd stood in their bedroom, this bedroom, packing a suitcase with methodical precision. Shirts, pants, the watch she'd saved 3 months' tips to buy him for their 2nd anniversary. Can't do what? She'd whispered, though she'd already known. Had felt it in the growing distance between them, the way he'd stopped touching her, stopped seeing her. This, us. He'd gestured vaguely at the apartment, at her, at the life they'd built together over 3 years. I'm not happy. So we'll work on it. We can go to counseling. We can... Emma's back in town. The name had landed like a physical blow. Emma Hartley, his high school sweetheart, the one who got away. She reached out to me a few months ago, Adrian had continued, still not meeting her eyes. We've been talking, and I realize now I never stopped loving her. A few months? Lena's voice had cracked. You've been talking to her for months? I'm sorry. But he hadn't sounded sorry. He'd sounded relieved. Free. I'm moving to Boston. She has a place there, and... Boston? Adrian, we're married. We made vows. Finally, he'd looked at her, really looked at her. and the emptiness in his eyes had been worse than anger, worse than hatred. I never should have married you, Lena. I see that now. You were safe, comfortable, but you're not her. Boo. He'd left that night, walked out with his suitcase and his car keys, and didn't look back. 2 days later, divorce papers arrived via FedEx, already filled out, just waiting for her signature. The phone timer shrieked, pulling Lena back to the present. 3 minutes. Her hand shook as she reached for the test. For a moment, she considered not looking, just throwing it away, pretending, living in blessed ignorance for a few more hours or days. But she'd never been good at lying to herself. She picked up the test and turned it over. 2 pink lines, clear and unmistakable. Pregnant. The test slipped from her fingers and clattered into the sink. Lena's legs gave out, and she slid down the wall until she was sitting on the bathroom floor again, her whole body numb. Pregnant with Adrian's baby. Adrian, who's in Boston right now, probably in bed with Emma. Adrian, who said marrying me was a mistake. The tears came then, hot and bitter, streaming down her face in rivers she couldn't control. Great, gasping sobs that tore through her chest and left her breathless. She was going to have a baby. Alone. Broke. About to be evicted. What am I going to do? What? Hours later, Lena wasn't sure how many, she finally pulled herself off the bathroom floor. Her eyes were swollen, her throat raw, her head pounding with the kind of headache that comes from crying too hard for too long. She needed air, needed to get out of this apartment that suddenly felt like a tomb. She grabbed her jacket and left, not bothering to lock the door. What did it matter? She had nothing worth stealing. The streets of Washington Heights were quieter now, the dinner rush over, families settled in for the night. Lena walked without direction, her feet carrying her south, away from her neighborhood, away from everything familiar. She ended up in a small park near Columbia University, a patch of brown grass and bare trees, mostly deserted except for a few students hurrying between buildings. There was a bench near a broken fountain, and Lena sank onto it, pulling her jacket tighter against the cold. The wind picked up, sending dead leaves skittering across the concrete. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. Long night? The voice came from behind her, smooth and dark like aged whiskey. Lena's head snapped up, her heart leaping into her throat. A man stood a few feet away, hands in the pockets of an expensive-looking black coat. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with dark hair swept back from a face that was all sharp angles and aristocratic features. His eyes were the color of smoke, pale gray in the dim park lighting, and they studied her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "I'm sorry," Lena said quickly, starting to stand. "Is this your bench? I can leave." "Sit." It wasn't a command exactly, but it wasn't a suggestion either. Something in his voice made her obey without thinking. The man moved closer, and Lena got her first good look at him. He was maybe in his mid-30s, she thought, though it was hard to tell. There was something ageless about him, something old in those pale eyes, despite the unlined face. He wore his expensive coat like armor, and everything about him, from his perfectly tailored suit to the way he carried himself, screamed power and danger. "I'm Lucien," he said, settling onto the bench beside her. Not close enough to crowd her, but near enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and woodsy that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "Lena," she heard herself say, though every instinct was screaming at her to run. "Lena." He repeated her name slowly, tasting it. "You've been crying." It wasn't a question, and she didn't bother denying it. "Bad day." "Bad day," he echoed, and something like amusement flickered across his face. "Is that what we're calling it?" She turned to look at him fully then, defensive. "Do I know you?" "No." He met her gaze without flinching. "But I know you." The word should have terrified her, should have sent her running. Instead, Lena found herself frozen, caught in the gravity of those strange gray eyes. "That's impossible," she whispered. "Is it?" Lucien tilted his head slightly, studying her like she was a puzzle he was in no hurry to solve. "You're Lena Morales, 27. Waitress at Marco's on 42nd Street. Your husband left you 6 weeks ago for a woman named Emma Hartley. You're 3 weeks late on rent, facing eviction, and..." His eyes dropped briefly to her still flat stomach. "You just found out you're pregnant." The blood drained from Lena's face. How do you... Who are you? I told you, I'm Lucien. He leaned back against the bench, perfectly relaxed, as if they were discussing the weather. And I've been watching you, Lena, for quite some time. She should run. She should scream. She should do anything except sit here on this cold bench with a stranger who somehow knew everything about her life. But she didn't move. Why? She managed. Because you interest me. Simple. Direct. The truth, or close enough to it. I saw you 3 months ago serving tables at Marco's. You smiled at everyone, made everyone feel special, even though I could see how tired you were, how alone. That's your job as a waitress, Lena said weakly. No. Lucien's voice was soft but absolute. That's who you are. You give, even when you have nothing left to give. You smile, even when you're breaking inside. You survive. Tears pricked at her eyes again. I don't feel like I'm surviving. I know. He was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke again, his voice held something that might have been sympathy, might have been something else entirely. Your husband is a fool. A bitter laugh escaped her. He's in love with someone else. That doesn't make him a fool. He walked away from something real for something easy. That makes him the worst kind of fool. Lucien's eyes hardened. And now you're alone, carrying his child, with nowhere to go and no one to help you. I'll figure it out, Lena said, even though she had no idea how. I always do. Will you? He didn't sound convinced. Where will you go when Castellano evicts you in 8 days? Back to your family in Arizona? The family you haven't spoken to in 3 years because they told you not to marry Adrian? Her breath caught. How does he know that? Or maybe you'll try to find another apartment, Lucien continued relentlessly. Good luck with that, by the way. Even the worst studios in Washington Heights require first month, last month, and security deposit. That's what, $4,000 minimum? How much do you have in your bank account right now, Lena? 300? 400? Stop. Her voice broke. He did, immediately. The silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken things. Why are you doing this? Lena whispered finally. Why tell me all the ways I'm screwed? I'm not. Lucien turned to face her fully, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. I'm showing you that I see you, not the mask you wear for customers, not the brave face you put on, the real you, the woman who's terrified and alone and doesn't know what to do next. And that's supposed to make me feel better? No. A slight smile touched his lips. It's supposed to make you trust me. Trust you? She almost laughed. You're a stranger who's been stalking me. I prefer observing. He said it without shame, without apology. And I'm about to offer you something, Lena. Something you need very badly. Her hands clenched in her lap. I don't want money. Good, because I'm not offering money. He stood then, looking down at her from his full height. I'm offering protection, safety, a way out of the hole you're in. Why? The question came out as barely more than a whisper. What do you want from me? Lucien was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft, almost gentle. Nothing you're not willing to give. I won't touch you, Lena. Won't force you. Won't make demands. He pulled a business card from his pocket and held it out to her. But I will keep you safe. You and your child. All you have to do is ask. Lena stared at the card. Heavy cream cardstock with nothing but a phone number embossed in black. No name. No business. Just 10 digits. What are you? She asked. Some kind of, what? Mobster? Criminal? Another smile, this one sharper. Does it matter? Yes. I'm someone who has resources, power, the ability to make problems disappear. He pressed the card into her hand, his fingers cold against her skin. And right now, you have a lot of problems. I don't even know you. No, he agreed, but you will. When you're ready, when you realize you can't do this alone, call that number. I'll answer. He turned to leave, his coat billowing slightly in the wind. Wait, Lena called out, surprising herself. What if I don't call? What if I figure this out on my own? Lucien looked back at her, and for just a moment, something raw and almost human flickered across his face. "Then I'll respect that," he said quietly. "But I'll still be watching, Lena, making sure you're safe, making sure you survive." "That's creepy." "Yes," he agreed without hesitation. "It is, but it's also the truth. I protect what's mine. I'm not yours." The smile he gave her then was dark and knowing and made something low in her belly tighten with fear, and something else she didn't want to name. "Not yet," Lucien said. "But you will be." Then he was gone, disappearing into the shadows like he'd never been there at all. Lena sat alone on the bench for a long time, the business card burning in her hand like a brand. Around her, the park settled into deeper darkness, the wind carrying the promise of winter. She looked down at the simple card with its single phone number. "When you realize you can't do this alone," his words echoed in her head, mixing with the memory of those 2 pink lines, the eviction notice, her empty bank account, the father of her child sleeping peacefully in Boston with another woman. "I can do this alone," she whispered to the empty park. "I have to." But even as she said it, she slipped the card into her pocket, just in case. The next 5 days passed in a haze of escalating desperation. Lena went to work at Marco's, smiled at customers, took orders, delivered food. Her tips were decent, they always were, but decent wasn't enough. Not anymore. She did the math obsessively, sitting at her tiny kitchen table with bills spread around her like tarot cards predicting doom. Rent, $1,400. Utilities, $150. Phone, $80. Food, $200 if she was careful. And now, doctor's appointments, prenatal vitamins, eventually, baby supplies. The numbers didn't add up. No matter how she rearranged them, they never added up. On day 2, she called her mother in Arizona. The conversation lasted exactly 90 seconds. "Pregnant? Lena, please tell me you're joking." "I'm not joking, Mom. We told you not to marry that boy. Told you he wasn't good enough, but did you listen?" "No. You ran off to New York to play house, and now look at you." "Mom, please. I just need a little help. Just until—" "I'm sorry, Mija, but your father and we can't. We're barely making it ourselves, and after the way you cut us out of your life." The line went quiet for a moment. Then her mother's voice came back, softer, but no less final. "You made your choices, Lena. Now you have to live with them." Click. Lena stared at her phone for a long time after that call ended, feeling something inside her crack just a little bit more. On day 3, she tried to find a second job. But every place that was hiring wanted availability she couldn't give. Full-time hours, night shifts, weekends. Nobody wanted a pregnant waitress who'd need time off in a few months. On day 4, she went to a clinic. Free pregnancy testing and initial consultation. The nurse was kind but brisk, going through the standard questions. Father involved? No. Family support? No. Financial resources? Lena had almost laughed at that one. No. The nurse had given her a sympathetic look and a folder full of information about state assistance programs, WS, food stamps, emergency housing, all of it helpful. None of it enough. On day 5, Mr. Castellano knocked on her door at 7 in the morning. "Miss Morales?" He was a short, round man with thinning hair and the emotional range of a parking meter. "November 30th is in 3 days. I need to know, are you vacating, or do I need to start formal eviction proceedings?" Lena had opened her mouth to answer, with what she didn't know, when a wave of nausea hit her so hard she had to grab the doorframe for support. "Miss Morales?" She barely made it to the bathroom before vomiting, her whole body heaving with morning sickness that had started manifesting with a vengeance. Behind her, she heard Castellano make a disgusted sound and shut the door. She spent the rest of that day curled up on the bathroom floor, too sick to move, too tired to care. That night, alone in her cold apartment, Lena pulled out Lucian's business card. The numbers seemed to shimmer in the dim light, almost mocking her. "I protect what's mine." "Not yet. But you will be." She turned the card over and over in her fingers, war raging inside her. Pride versus survival, independence versus desperation. What did she even know about him? He could be anyone, could want anything, could be dangerous in ways she couldn't begin to imagine. But then again, what did she have to lose? Her apartment? Already losing it. Her money? Already gone. Her dignity? Hard to lose what poverty and morning sickness had already stripped away. At 2 a.m., shaking with cold and fear, and something that might have been surrender, Lena picked up her phone. The call connected on the first ring. Lena. His voice was exactly as she remembered, smooth, dark, certain, like he'd been waiting by the phone, like he'd known she would call. I need help, she whispered. Silence. Then, I know. Where are you? Home. My apartment. Stay there. I'm sending someone. Don't be afraid. Lucienne. But he'd already hung up. Lena sat in the darkness of her studio apartment, hugging her knees to her chest, and waited. 20 minutes later, she heard footsteps in the hallway. A soft knock. She opened the door to find a woman standing there. Mid-40s, professional-looking, with kind eyes and a medical bag. Miss Morales? I'm Dr. Sarah Chen. Mr. Moretti sent me. Mr. Moretti? Lucienne, the doctor clarified with a small smile. May I come in? Lena stepped aside, too stunned to do anything else. Dr. Chen moved through the apartment with efficient calm, setting up a small examination area on the couch. I understand you're approximately 8 weeks pregnant. Have you had any prenatal care yet? I went to a clinic yesterday. They confirmed it. Good. Let's take a look, shall we? The examination was thorough but gentle. Dr. Chen checked her blood pressure, drew blood, did an ultrasound with a portable machine she'd brought with her. Through it all, she maintained a running commentary, explaining everything, making Lena feel like a person instead of a problem. Baby looks healthy, she said finally, showing Lena the grainy image on the ultrasound screen. Strong heartbeat, measuring right on track for 8 weeks. Lena stared at the tiny flicker on the screen, her baby's heartbeat, and felt tears slide down her face. It's real, she whispered. Very real. Dr. Chen squeezed her hand. And you're going to be okay, Lena. Mr. Moretti is going to make sure of it. After the doctor left, leaving behind prenatal vitamins, anti-nausea medication, and a folder full of information, Lena sat alone in the silence. 10 minutes later, another knock. This time it was a man in an expensive suit carrying several bags. Delivery for Miss Morales, he said, handing them over without waiting for a signature. Food, fresh fruit, vegetables, proteins, whole grain bread. Real food, not the ramen and canned soup she'd been surviving on. Another bag held a space heater, another thick blankets. The last one contained a simple envelope. Inside, $5,000 in cash and a note in elegant handwriting. For rent and expenses, no strings, no expectations, just safety. Elena sank down onto her couch, surrounded by groceries and cash and evidence of care from a man she didn't know, didn't understand, and absolutely shouldn't trust. But he'd sent a doctor, had made sure her baby was okay, had given her food and warmth and money. No strings, he'd said. I protect what's mine. She wasn't his. She'd made that clear in the park. But maybe, just maybe, she wanted to be. Morning came too soon, pale November sunlight filtering through her window. Lena woke to the smell of real food for the first time in weeks. She made herself eggs and toast with the groceries Lucienne had sent, her appetite slowly returning now that the anti-nausea medication was working. The cash sat on her counter, crisp and neat. $5,000. More money than she'd ever had at one time in her life. She could pay Castellano, could buy herself time, could breathe. But first, she needed answers. She picked up her phone and dialed the number on the business card. Good morning, Lucienne answered. No surprise in his voice. He'd been expecting this call too. Thank you, Lena said simply. For the doctor, the food, the money. You're welcome. But I need to understand something. Why are you doing this? What do you want? A pause. Then, would you have dinner with me tonight? I'll answer all your questions, but I'd rather do it in person. Every warning bell in her head went off. Dinner with a stranger, a powerful stranger who knew too much and gave too freely. Where? She heard herself ask. I'll send a car at 7. Wear whatever makes you comfortable. This isn't a seduction, Lena. It's a conversation. And if I say no, then I respect that. But you'll still have the money, still have my protection. Whether you have dinner with me or not doesn't change what I'm offering. That, more than anything, made her decision. 7 o'clock, Lena said. Okay. I'll see you tonight. The line went dead and Lena sat staring at her phone, wondering what she'd just agreed to, and why, despite everything, she was looking forward to it. The black car arrived at exactly 7 o'clock, sleek and expensive, idling at the curb like a patient predator. Lena watched it from her window, her heart hammering against her ribs as a driver in a dark suit stepped out and opened the rear door. She'd changed clothes 3 times, finally settling on the only dress she owned that still fit properly, a simple navy blue sheath that she usually wore to job interviews. Her makeup was minimal, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun. Professional, controlled, like she had any control over what was happening to her life. The driver nodded politely as she approached. Miss Morales, I'm Thomas. Mr. Moretti is waiting. Lena slid into the back seat, the leather cool against her legs. The interior smelled like expensive cologne and possibility. Thomas closed the door with a quiet click and returned to the driver's seat. Where are we going? She asked as the car pulled smoothly into traffic. Maria, Thomas said. Central Park South. Lena's stomach dropped. Maria. She'd walked past it 100 times, one of those restaurants where entrees started at $60 and the wait list was months long. The kind of place where Adrian had promised to take her for their anniversary, but never did because it was too expensive. The kind of place where a man like Lucien probably ate every night. The drive took 20 minutes, Manhattan sliding past in a blur of lights and movement. Lena watched the city transform as they headed south. Her neighborhood's scrappy resilience giving way to Midtown's polished grandeur. By the time they pulled up to the restaurant, her hands were shaking. Thomas opened her door, offering his hand to help her out. Mr. Moretti is inside, table by the window. The restaurant's interior was everything she'd imagined. Intimate lighting, cream-colored walls, tables dressed in pristine white linens. A hostess in elegant black greeted her immediately. Miss Morales? Right this way? Lucien sat at a corner table overlooking Central Park, backlit by the city lights that turned the darkness into something almost magical. He stood as she approached, and Lena was struck again by how he commanded space, tall, perfectly tailored, radiating the kind of power that made people step aside without thinking. Lena. He pulled out her chair himself, a gesture so old-fashioned it should have felt awkward. Instead, it felt strangely natural. You look beautiful. You look dangerous, she said before she could stop herself. His laugh was low and genuine. Fair enough. He settled back into his own chair, those pale gray eyes studying her with unnerving focus. Are you hungry? Starving, actually. The anti-nausea medication was working miracles. For the first time in weeks, the thought of food didn't make her stomach revolt. Lucien gestured to the waiter, who appeared instantly. We'll start with the crudo and the burrata. For the main, what appeals to you? Lena scanned the menu, trying not to let her eyes widen at the prices. The halibut sounds good. 2 halibuts then, and water for the lady. Sparkling or still? Still, please. And a Barolo for me. Lucien handed back the menus, dismissing the waiter with a subtle nod. Silence settled between them, not quite comfortable but not hostile either. Lena folded her hands in her lap to keep them from trembling. You said you'd answer my questions, she started. I did. Ask. Who are you? Really? Lucien leaned back in his chair, swirling the wine that had been poured with practiced ease. Lucien Moretti, 36 years old, born in Brooklyn to a family that understood power and how to keep it. I run several businesses, import/export, real estate, private security, all legitimate if that's what you're worried about. Is it legitimate? Mostly. He didn't look away, didn't flinch from the truth. I operate in gray areas sometimes. But I'm not a criminal, Lena. I don't hurt innocent people. I don't traffic in anything that causes real harm. But you do hurt people. People who deserve it. His voice went cold for just a moment. People who prey on the weak, who take advantage, who think money or connections put them above consequences. The food arrived, beautifully plated, and Lena forced herself to take a bite. The fish melted on her tongue, perfectly seasoned, better than anything she'd tasted in months. "Why me?" she asked when the waiter had retreated. "You said you saw me at the restaurant 3 months ago, but that doesn't explain why you started watching me, why you care." Lucien was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "Do you believe in recognition?" he asked finally. "In seeing someone and just knowing they matter?" "That sounds like a line." "It does," he agreed. "But it's also the truth. I saw you serving tables, smiling even though you were exhausted. Even though your husband was already pulling away from you. Yes, I could see it even then. The way he'd come pick you up sometimes and barely look at you. The way you tried so hard to make him see you." Lena's throat tightened. "You saw all that?" "I see everything, Lena. It's what I do, what I'm good at." He set down his fork, giving her his full attention. "And what I saw was a woman who gave everything to people who gave nothing back. A woman who deserved better but had been convinced she didn't. You don't know anything about me." "Don't I?" His voice was soft but unyielding. "Your mother calls you Mija, but hasn't supported you in 3 years because you made your choices. Your father works construction and hasn't forgiven you for marrying outside their plans for you. You have a sister named Carmen who sends you occasional texts asking how you are, but never offers real help because she's too wrapped up in her own family." Lena's hands clenched in her lap. "How do you know all that?" "Because I made it my business to know. When I decide to protect someone, I do it thoroughly." "I didn't ask for your protection 3 months ago." "No, but you needed it anyway." Lucien's eyes held hers. "Adrian was already cheating on you by then, you know. Not just talking to Emma. They'd slept together at least twice before he finally worked up the courage to leave." The words landed like blows. Lena felt her breath catch, tears threatening. "You're lying." "I'm not, and deep down you know I'm not." He reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. "I'm sorry. I know that hurts, but you deserve the truth, even when it's ugly." She pulled her hand back, pressing it against her stomach where her baby, Adrian's baby, was growing. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to understand something fundamental, Lena. The man who left you was never worthy of you. Not then, not now, not ever. And you mourning him, questioning yourself, wondering what you did wrong, it's a waste of the strength you're going to need." "Strength for what?" "For surviving, for raising your child, for building a life that isn't defined by someone else's cruelty." He picked up his wine, studying the dark liquid. "You called me last night because you're out of options. I understand that. But I want you to call me again, keep calling me, because you choose to. Because you recognize that I see you in a way no one else does." Lena's heart was racing. Everything about this conversation felt dangerous, like walking on ice that could crack at any moment. "What do you want from me, Lucien, really?" "Company," he said simply. "Trust, eventually. Your presence in my life." "Why?" "Because you're real." His voice dropped, intimate in a way that made her shiver. "Do you have any idea how rare that is in my world? Everyone wants something. Everyone's calculating, performing, angling. But you're just trying to survive with your dignity intact. That's remarkable." "I'm not remarkable. I'm a broke, pregnant waitress about to be homeless." "You're a woman who's been knocked down repeatedly and keeps getting back up. That's the definition of remarkable." He leaned forward slightly. "Let me help you, Lena. Not just with money or a place to stay. Let me give you the space to breathe, to heal, to figure out who you are when you're not fighting just to exist. And what do you get out of it?" "You," he said without hesitation. "In whatever capacity you're willing to give. Friendship, conversation, eventually, maybe more. But I'm not demanding anything. I'm offering." The waiter appeared to clear their plates, giving Lena a moment to process. Her mind was spinning, trying to reconcile the dangerous man who knew too much with the careful way he spoke to her, the respect in his voice. "I have conditions," she heard herself say. Lucien's lips curved into a slight smile. "I'd be disappointed if you didn't. No touching, not until I say otherwise." "Agreed. No decisions about the baby without my input. This is my child." "Of course." "And I need to understand what I'm stepping into. Your world, the gray areas you mentioned. I need honesty." He studied her for a long moment, something like approval flickering in those pale eyes. Fair enough. What do you want to know? Your businesses, the legitimate ones and the others. Lucian signaled for coffee, waiting until they were alone again before speaking. I own 3 import companies that handle luxury goods from Europe, perfectly legal, highly profitable. I have real estate holdings throughout Manhattan, apartment buildings, office spaces, some retail, also legal. I run a private security firm that provides protection for high-value clients, celebrities, politicians, wealthy families. Legal, though sometimes we operate in jurisdictions with flexible interpretations of privacy laws. And the gray areas? I provide conflict resolution services for people who can't go to the police. Cheating spouses who need encouragement to settle divorces fairly. Business partners who breach contracts in ways that aren't quite illegal but are definitely unethical. People who've been wronged by others with too much money and power. You hurt people, Lena said flatly. Sometimes. Usually just their bank accounts and their reputations. Occasionally, very occasionally, physical intimidation is necessary. But I don't kill, Lena. I don't maim. I make people regret their choices without destroying their lives. That's a fine line. It is, and I walk it carefully. He met her eyes steadily. I won't lie to you. What I do isn't always pretty, but it's necessary, and I sleep fine at night knowing the people I target deserve far worse than they get. Lena absorbed this, turning it over in her mind. She should be horrified, should be running for the door. But instead she found herself thinking about Adrian, about his casual cruelty, about how he'd walked away without consequences while she drowned in the aftermath. If I say yes to your help, she started slowly, what does that look like, practically? You move out of your apartment. I have a place in Tribeca, a building I own. There's a 2-bedroom on the 15th floor, vacant, fully furnished. You'd live there, no rent. Lucien, before you argue, he continued, understand that I own the building outright. You living there costs me nothing, and you having a safe, warm place to raise your child benefits both of us. How does it benefit you? Because you'll be close, safe, accessible when you need help or just want company. He paused. And because knowing you're taken care of lets me focus on other things without constantly worrying about you being evicted or going hungry. You barely know me. I know enough, and I want to know more. He leaned back, giving her space. The apartment is yours regardless. Even if you decide you don't want anything else to do with me, you can live there. I'll put it in writing if you want. Lena's head was spinning. What about work? I can't just quit Marco's. Why not? Because I need income. I need to support myself. The apartment is rent-free. I'll provide a monthly allowance for expenses, food, medical care, whatever you need. You can quit Marco's, focus on your health and your pregnancy. Maybe take some classes online, figure out what you actually want to do instead of just surviving. It sounded like a fairy tale. Too good to be true. There had to be a catch. And when the baby comes? She asked. What then? Lucien's expression softened in a way she hadn't seen before. Then you have a child to raise and I help however you'll let me. Nanny, if you want to work, daycare, whatever you need. You're talking about supporting me for years. Why would you do that? Because I can. Simple, honest, terrifying in its certainty. Because you need it. And because I want you in my life, Lena. This is how I make that possible. She should say no. Every rational part of her brain was screaming to say no. This was too much, too fast, too strange. But then she thought about her cold apartment, the eviction notice, the dwindling cash in her wallet, thought about working on her feet for hours while pregnant, barely making enough to survive, thought about having this baby alone, scared, with no safety net. I need time, she said finally, to think about this. Of course. Lucian didn't look disappointed. If anything, he seemed pleased that she wasn't just agreeing blindly. Take all the time you need. The offer stands. Can I see the apartment before I decide? Tomorrow, if you want. I'll send a car at noon. They finished their coffee in relative silence, the conversation shifting to safer topics, books they'd read, places they'd traveled, mundane things that felt surreal given everything else they'd discussed. When Thomas pulled up outside her building later that night, Lucien walked her to the door himself. Thank you for dinner, Lena said, meaning it. And for being honest, I think. Always, he promised, even when the truth is uncomfortable. He didn't try to kiss her, didn't even touch her beyond a brief hand on her elbow to steady her on the stairs. But the way he looked at her, like she was something precious and worth protecting, made her feel seen in a way she hadn't in years. Good night, Lena. Good night, Lucienne. She watched him return to the car, watched it pull away into the night, and wondered what she was getting herself into. The apartment was everything he'd promised, and more. Lena stood in the middle of the spacious living room the next day, turning in slow circles as November sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a kitchen with marble countertops and appliances that looked like they'd never been used, hardwood floors, crown molding, the kind of place she'd only ever seen in magazines. The master bedroom has an ensuite, Lucian was saying, leading her down the hall, and the second bedroom would work perfectly as a nursery. The nursery was painted a soft cream, empty but full of potential. Lena imagined a crib in the corner, a changing table against the wall, shelves full of books and toys. Her baby's room. There's building security 24/7, Lucian continued. Doorman, cameras, the works. You'd be safe here, Lena. She turned to face him, the strange man who was offering her everything. Why does it feel like I'm selling my soul? Because you've been taught that accepting help means losing yourself. His voice was gentle but firm. But it doesn't. Not if the help comes without conditions. There are always conditions. Not with me. Not about this. He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. I had my lawyer draw this up last night. Lease agreement putting this apartment in your name for 5 years rent-free. No clauses about our relationship status. No strings. You could tell me to get lost tomorrow, and you'd still have this place. Lena took the envelope with shaking hands, scanning the legal document inside. It was exactly as he'd described, straightforward, protective of her rights, no hidden clauses. I don't understand you, she whispered. I know, but you will. He moved toward the door, giving her space. Take your time. Walk through the apartment. Imagine living here. When you're ready, Thomas is downstairs to take you wherever you want to go. Lucienne, she called as he reached the door. What if I say yes? What happens then? He turned back, and the smile he gave her was warm and just a little bit dangerous. Then we figure out what comes next. Together. After he left, Lena spent an hour exploring every corner of the apartment. She ran her hands along the granite countertops, tested the water pressure in the showers, stood at the windows watching the city pulse with life below. She imagined waking up here every morning, imagined her baby taking first steps across these floors, imagined safety, stability, a future that didn't involve constantly scrambling just to survive. And she imagined Lucian, his steady presence, his careful protection, the way he looked at her like she mattered. It terrified her. But it also felt like the first real breath she'd taken in months. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Lena, it's Adrian. The world tilted sideways. She gripped the kitchen counter for support, her heart suddenly racing. How did you get this number? I called your work. Marco gave it to me. He sounded nervous, uncertain, not at all like the confident man who'd walked out on her 6 weeks ago. We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about. You left. You made your choice. I know, and I'm sorry. Emma and I, it's not working out the way I thought. She's different than I remembered, more demanding, less what? Less willing to worship you. Bitterness dripped from Lena's voice. I don't care about your problems, Adrian. Please just hear me out. I miss you. I miss us. What we had was you slowly checking out of our marriage while I tried desperately to make you stay. That's not something to miss. Lena, come on. We were good together. We can be good again. She thought about telling him, about the baby, the pregnancy, the fact that he was going to be a father whether he wanted to be or not. But something stopped her. Some instinct for self-preservation that had been dormant for years suddenly roaring to life. I don't want to be good with you again, she said clearly. I want you to leave me alone. You don't mean that. I absolutely do. Don't call me again, Adrian. Don't contact me. We're done. She hung up before he could respond, her hands shaking so hard she nearly dropped the phone. He missed her. Now. After weeks of silence, after running off with his perfect Emma, after destroying everything they'd built. Now he missed her. And maybe, a month ago, that would have been enough. She would have been so desperate for his affection, his attention, that she'd have taken him back just to not be alone. But standing in this beautiful apartment, thinking about Lucien's careful protectiveness and genuine respect, Adrian's words felt hollow, empty, a pale imitation of what real care looked like. She pulled out her phone and dialed the number on Lucien's business card. He answered immediately. "Lena." "I'll take the apartment," she said. "I'll accept your help." A pause. Then quietly, "Thank you for trusting me." "I don't trust you. Not yet." Honesty felt important. "But I trust myself, and I know I can't do this alone anymore. That's enough." She could hear the smile in his voice. "That's more than enough." They made plans for her to move in over the next week. Lucien arranged for movers, helped her give notice to Castellano, handled every detail with the kind of efficiency that spoke to vast resources and absolute control. Her last shift at Marco's was on a cold Thursday night. Her coworkers threw her a small going-away party in the kitchen, cake and well wishes and promises to stay in touch that they both knew would fade within months. "You're really leaving?" Marco himself came to say goodbye. The stocky Italian who'd given her a job 3 years ago when she'd been desperate for work. "I am. Thank you, Marco, for everything." He studied her with knowing eyes. "This man who's been sending cars for you, he's treating you right?" "He is." "Good. You deserve that." He pressed an envelope into her hand, her final paycheck plus what felt like extra. "You ever need anything, you call me. Capisce?" "Capiche," Lena agreed, blinking back tears. Moving day arrived with the kind of gray December rain that made everything feel melancholy. Lena watched as efficient movers packed up her meager belongings, clothes, books, a few kitchen items. Everything she owned fit in the back of a single truck. She took one last look at the apartment that had been her home for 3 years. The place where she'd started her marriage full of hope and ended it full of heartbreak. The walls held ghosts of arguments and reconciliations, of laughter and tears, of a life that no longer existed. "Goodbye," she whispered to the empty rooms. The Tribeca apartment felt like stepping into a different world. Her few possessions looked lost in all that space, like a child's toys scattered in an adult's home. But Lucien had already filled the kitchen with groceries, stocked the bathroom with toiletries, left fresh flowers on the dining table. "Welcome home," a note read in his elegant handwriting. "Take your time settling in. I'm here if you need anything. L." That night, Lena cooked herself dinner in a kitchen that worked perfectly, showered in a bathroom with endless hot water, and slept in a bed so comfortable she felt guilty. The building's sounds were different, quieter, more refined. No shouting neighbors, no sirens wailing past, no radiators clanking in the night. Just peace, silence, safety. She placed her hand on her still flat stomach, talking to the baby she couldn't yet see. "It's just you and me," she whispered into the darkness. "We're going to be okay. I promise." And for the first time in months, she actually believed it. The next few weeks fell into a rhythm that felt almost surreal in its calm. Lena spent her days resting, reading, exploring her new neighborhood. She had a standing appointment with Dr. Chen every week, watching her baby grow on ultrasound screens, hearing that strong heartbeat that never failed to make her cry. Lucien appeared regularly, but never intrusively. He'd text before coming over, always asking permission, always respecting her space. They'd have dinner together a few times a week, sometimes at restaurants, more often in her apartment where he'd bring takeout from places she couldn't pronounce but tasted like heaven. They talked about everything and nothing. He told her about growing up in Brooklyn, about his mother who died when he was 15, about learning early that power was the only real protection in a harsh world. She told him about Arizona, about her sister's perfect life that she could never quite measure up to, about how invisible she'd felt for so long. He never touched her beyond the occasional steadying hand on her elbow, never pushed for more than she offered, just showed up, consistent and solid, proving through action that his promises weren't empty. "You don't have to keep feeding me," Lena said one evening as they sat on her couch with Thai food spread between them. "I can cook for myself." "I know you can, but I like having dinner with you." He glanced at her over his curry. "Is it making you uncomfortable?" No, it's just strange. Good strange, but strange. I'll take good strange. His lips curved into that slight smile she was starting to recognize. How are you feeling? Physically? Better. The nausea is mostly gone. I'm tired all the time, but Dr. Chen says that's normal. Are you sleeping okay? Mostly. She hesitated. Sometimes I have nightmares. About Adrian. About being alone. Lucien's expression darkened. You're not alone. I know. Intellectually, I know, but fear doesn't listen to logic. He was quiet for a moment, then, would it help if I stayed? Not in your room, he added quickly, but in the guest room, just so you know someone's here. It was a dangerous offer, a line that once crossed would change their dynamic fundamentally. Lena knew she should say no, should maintain boundaries, should protect herself. Yes, she said instead. That would help. That night, Lucien slept in her guest room while Lena lay in her own bed, strangely comforted by his presence down the hall. She didn't have nightmares, slept better than she had in weeks. And when she woke to find him making coffee in her kitchen the next morning, dressed in slacks and an untucked white shirt, looking rumpled and human and unexpectedly domestic, something in her chest tightened with warmth. Good morning, he said, handing her herbal tea. Sleep well? I did, actually. She accepted the mug, their fingers brushing briefly. Thank you for staying. Any time. And the way he said it made it clear he meant it literally. It became routine. He'd stay over a few nights a week, always in the guest room, always proper. They'd have breakfast together, talk about their plans for the day, exist in each other's orbit like it was the most natural thing in the world. Lena felt herself softening toward him, felt the walls she'd built around her heart starting to crack, letting in light she hadn't realized she'd been missing. And then, 3 weeks after she'd moved in, Adrian showed up at her door. The doorbell rang at 2 in the afternoon on a Tuesday, cutting through the quiet of Lena's reading time. She set down her book, a thriller she'd been enjoying from the building's small library, and padded to the door in bare feet, expecting a package delivery. The security camera screen showed Adrian standing in the hallway, looking nervous and determined in equal measure. Lena's heart stopped, then started again racing. Her hand froze on the doorknob as 1,000 thoughts crashed through her mind at once. How did he find her? How did he get past building security? What did he want? She almost didn't answer, almost called Lucien instead, let him handle this. But something stubborn and angry rose up inside her, the part that had been growing stronger these past few weeks. Adrian had taken enough from her. He didn't get to take her voice too. She opened the door but didn't invite him in, keeping the chain lock engaged. What are you doing here? Adrian looked worse than she remembered. His hair was disheveled, his eyes red-rimmed like he hadn't slept in days. The confident man who'd walked out on her had been replaced by someone desperate and diminished. Lena, thank goodness. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. I changed my number, on purpose. I know. Marco wouldn't give me your new one, so I called your mother. You called my mother? Fury spiked through her. You had no right. She gave me this address, said you'd moved, that you were living in some fancy place in Tribeca now. His eyes swept past her to the apartment beyond, and something ugly twisted across his face. How can you afford this, Lena? What did you do? The accusation in his voice made her want to slam the door in his face. That's none of your business. You need to leave. Just give me 5 minutes, please. I came all the way from Boston. I didn't ask you to. Emma and I are done. Completely done. It was a mistake, all of it. I see that now. He pressed closer to the door, his voice dropping into that pleading tone she used to find endearing. Now it just sounded pathetic. I want to come home, Lena. I want us to work this out. There is no us to work out. You left. You chose her. End of story. But I was wrong. I'm admitting that. Doesn't that count for something? Lena stared at him, this man she'd loved for 3 years, and felt nothing but a cold, clear certainty. No, it doesn't count for anything. You don't get to throw away our marriage and then waltz back in when your plan doesn't work out. I made a mistake. You made a choice. And now I'm making mine. Leave, Adrian. Don't come back. She started to close the door, but he shoved his hand against it, stopping her. Wait, just wait. At least tell me how you're doing. You look different, healthier. There was something in his eyes, calculation mixed with the desperation that made her skin crawl. He was scanning her body, noting the slight curve of her belly that was just starting to show beneath her loose sweater. "You're pregnant." It wasn't a question. Realization dawned across his face, followed by something that looked like triumph. "You're pregnant with my baby." Lena's blood ran cold. She should have known he'd figure it out. Should have been prepared for this. "How far along?" he demanded. "That's none of your—" "I'm the father. I have a right to know." "You have no rights?" Her voice came out steady, stronger than she felt. "You walked away. You don't get to claim anything now." "That's my child, Lena. My baby. You can't just—" "I can. I will. You signed divorce papers. You made it very clear you wanted nothing to do with me or my life. That extends to this baby." Adrian's face flushed red. "You can't keep my kid from me. I'll get a lawyer. I'll fight for custody. With what?" She laughed, sharp and bitter. "You couldn't even afford to take me to a nice restaurant for our anniversary. You think you can afford a custody battle? Emma has money. Her family. Ah. So you'd use your girlfriend's family money to fight for a baby you don't actually want, just to prove you can?" Lena shook her head. "You really are pathetic, Adrian." His hand clenched into a fist against the door. For a moment, she thought he might actually try to force his way in, but then a voice cut through the tension like a blade through silk. "Is there a problem here?" Lucien appeared at the end of the hallway, moving toward them with the kind of predatory grace that made Adrian instinctively step back. He was dressed in one of his immaculate suits, his pale eyes cold and assessing as they took in the scene. "Who the hell are you?" Adrian demanded, though his voice had lost its edge. "I'm the man who's about to call security, if you don't remove your hand from that door." Lucien's tone was conversational, almost pleasant, but there was steel underneath, a promise of consequences. Adrian pulled his hand back like he'd been burned. "This is between me and my wife." "Ex-wife," Lena corrected. "And no, it's not. It's done. Leave." "Lena, please." Lucien moved closer, and though he didn't touch Adrian, something about his presence made the other man shrink back further. "You heard her. Leave, now, before I make you leave." "You threatening me?" "Stating fact." Lucien's smile was all teeth. "You have 10 seconds to get in that elevator before I call security. After that, I'll handle this personally. And trust me, you don't want that." Adrian looked between them, his face a mask of rage and humiliation. "You're sleeping with him. That's how you can afford this place. You're his whore." Lena felt the impact of the word like a slap. But before she could respond, Lucien moved, not violently, but with absolute authority. He stepped between Lena and Adrian, his body a wall of protection. "Apologize." His voice was quiet, deadly. "Screw you, I'm not—" Lucien's hand shot out, gripping Adrian's collar and pulling him close. "You will apologize to her, right now, or I promise you the next words out of your mouth will be your last coherent ones for a while." Adrian's eyes went wide with fear. Up close, he could probably see what Lena had sensed from the beginning. Lucien was dangerous in ways Adrian couldn't begin to comprehend. This wasn't a man who made idle threats. "I'm sorry," Adrian gasped out. "I'm sorry, Lena. I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did." Lucien released him with a slight shove that sent Adrian stumbling backward. "But you're going to leave now anyway. You're going to go back to Boston, back to your girlfriend and her family money, and you're going to stay away from Lena. Forever." "That's my baby." "No." Lucien's voice cut through the protest like ice. "That baby has nothing to do with you. You made that choice when you walked away, when you cheated, when you abandoned your wife while she was struggling. You don't get to come back now because it's convenient." You can't stop me from seeing my own kid." "Actually, I can. And I will." Lucien pulled his phone from his pocket, pulling up something on the screen and turning it toward Adrian. "Would you like to see the evidence I have of your affair with Emma Hartley? Started 4 months before you left Lena, not 6 weeks after like you claimed. Hotel receipts, restaurant charges, text messages that are, let's say, explicit." Adrian's face went white. "How did you—" I make it my business to know things, especially when it concerns people I care about. Lucian pocketed the phone. Now, you have two choices. Walk away clean, sign away any parental rights when the paperwork arrives, and go live your life. Or fight this and have every dirty detail of your affair dragged through court. Your choice, but choose quickly. Lena watched Adrian's face cycle through emotions: rage, fear, calculation, defeat. She'd never seen him like this, diminished and desperate. Part of her felt satisfaction. Most of her just felt tired. I knew, she said quietly. Both men turned to look at her. When you came to get your stuff, you said you'd been talking to Emma for a few months. But I knew it was more. I could feel it. The way you'd hide your phone, come home late, smell different. Lena, I knew. And I still tried to make you stay, still begged you to go to counseling, still acted like it was somehow my fault you were cheating. She straightened her shoulders, one hand resting protectively on her belly. That's the woman you're trying to guilt trip right now. The one who loved you so much she was willing to ignore your betrayal. And you know what? She doesn't exist anymore. What happened to you? Adrian's voice was barely a whisper. I woke up, and I realized I deserve better than someone who sees me as safe and comfortable, who treats me like a consolation prize. She looked at Lucian, then back at Adrian. So yes, sign the papers. Give up your rights. Because this baby deserves better too. Deserves someone who actually wants them, who'll show up and be present. And that's not you. Adrian stood there for a long moment, broken and defeated. Then he turned and walked toward the elevator without another word. Lucien watched until the doors closed behind him, then pulled out his phone and made a call. Marka, Adrian Walker just left the building. Make sure he doesn't come back. Alert all security personnel. He's not welcome on the premises. Ever. A pause. Thank you. He ended the call and turned to Lena, his expression softening. Are you okay? I don't know. She was shaking, she realized, trembling from head to foot with adrenaline and emotion. How did you know to come? Building security called me when someone insisted on coming up without being announced. Said they were your husband. Lucian's jaw tightened. I was 3 blocks away. Got here as fast as I could. You told security to call you? I told them to call me if anyone tried to force their way to you. Yes. He didn't look apologetic. After you mentioned Adrian called you, I knew he might try to find you. I wasn't taking chances. Lena should have felt angry about him monitoring her security. Should have felt controlled, manipulated. Instead, she just felt grateful, safe. Thank you, she whispered. Lucien stepped closer, and for the first time he reached out and touched her, a gentle hand on her shoulder, grounding and warm. You were incredible. The way you stood up to him. I'm proud of you. Something inside her cracked at those words. When was the last time someone had been proud of her? Had seen her strength instead of just her struggle? The tears came without warning, hot and overwhelming. Lucien's arms came around her immediately, pulling her against his chest as she sobbed. He didn't try to shush her or tell her it was okay, just held her, one hand stroking her hair, letting her fall apart in the safety of his presence. He knew, she gasped between sobs, about the baby. He knew, and he didn't care until it became convenient. I know, I'm sorry. He called me a whore. Lucien's arms tightened around her. He's wrong. He's a small, cruel man who can't stand seeing you happy without him. His words mean nothing. Then why do they hurt so much? Because you're human. Because you loved him once. Because words carry weight, even when they shouldn't. He pulled back slightly, tilting her face up to meet his eyes. But you are not what he called you. You're strong and brave, and you're building a life for yourself and your child. That takes more courage than he'll ever have. She wanted to believe him, wanted to feel as strong as he seemed to think she was. But right now, she just felt broken. Can you stay? She asked, her voice small. Not just tonight. Can you stay for a while? I don't want to be alone. I'll stay as long as you need me. He wiped the tears from her cheeks with his thumbs, the gesture achingly tender. Days, weeks, months. However long it takes for you to feel safe again. That night, Lucien stayed. Not in the guest room this time, but on the couch in the living room, close enough that Lena could see him from her bedroom door. Close enough to know she wasn't alone. She woke twice from nightmares. Adrian's face twisted in rage, his hands reaching for her, claiming her baby. Both times, she found Lucien awake, reading by lamplight, immediately alert when he heard her stir. "Just a dream," he'd say quietly. "You're safe. I'm here." By the third night, the nightmares had eased. By the end of the week, Lena found herself actually sleeping through the night. Lucien became a constant presence. He worked from her apartment sometimes, his laptop set up at her dining table while she read or watched TV. They fell into an easy domesticity that should have felt strange, but instead felt natural. He'd make coffee while she made breakfast. She'd fold his shirts when they came back from the dry cleaner he had delivered to her place. They'd have dinner together every night, talking about everything and nothing. "Tell me about your mother," Lena said one evening as they ate pasta she'd attempted to make from scratch. "You said she died when you were 15?" Lucien was quiet for a moment, swirling wine in his glass. "Cancer, ovarian. She fought it for 2 years before it finally took her." "I'm sorry." "So am I." His smile was sad. "She was the only person who ever made me feel like I could be more than what the neighborhood expected. More than muscle and anger. She wanted me to go to college. Become a lawyer maybe. Something legitimate." "What happened instead?" "My father died 6 months after her. Heart attack. Stress probably. And I was alone at 16 with no money and a lot of anger. Got involved with some people who saw potential in that anger. Learned how to use it, how to control it, how to make it profitable." "Do you regret it?" "Sometimes. But it made me who I am. Gave me the resources to help people like you." He met her eyes across the table. "So no, I don't regret the path. Just wish my mother could have seen that I found my own way to be legitimate. Different than she imagined, but not wrong." Lena reached across the table, taking his hand for the first time. His fingers closed around hers, warm and solid. "She'd be proud of you, I think, for the man you've become." "What makes you say that?" "Because you use your power to protect people, to make things right when the system fails them. That's not so different from being a lawyer, just more direct." His laugh was surprised and genuine. "I've never thought of it that way." "Maybe you should." They sat there in comfortable silence, hands linked across the table, and Lena felt something shift between them. A deepening. A recognition that this thing they were building, whatever it was, mattered to both of them. 2 weeks after Adrian's visit, the papers arrived via courier, parental rights termination documents, already signed by Adrian, just waiting for Lena's signature and a notary's seal. She stared at them for a long time, her hand resting on her belly where the baby was starting to move. Little flutters that felt like butterflies, like possibility. "You don't have to sign them," Lucien said from where he sat across from her. "Not if you think he deserves a chance." "He doesn't." Lena picked up the pen. "He knew I was pregnant. My mother told him during their phone call. She'd figured it out from our conversation. And he still only came back when his plan with Emma failed. He doesn't want this baby. He wants control." She signed her name with steady hands, then called the notary who lived 2 floors down. Within an hour, it was done. Official. Adrian Walker had no legal rights to her child. "How do you feel?" Lucien asked after the notary left. "Free." And she meant it. "For the first time since I took that pregnancy test, I feel free." That evening, they went for a walk through the neighborhood. December had arrived with surprising gentleness, the air cold but not bitter, the streets decorated with holiday lights that turned everything magical. "Do you have family you see for the holidays?" Lena asked as they walked. "Not really. A few cousins in Brooklyn I have dinner with sometimes, but it's not close." He glanced at her. "What about you?" "I called my sister last week, Carmen. Told her about the baby." "How did she react?" "Surprised. A little judgmental at first. Asked about Adrian, seemed shocked when I said he'd signed away his rights. But then she softened, said she'd come visit after the baby's born. Bring her kids." Lena smiled. "It's not much, but it's something." "It's more than something. It's hope." Lucien stopped walking, turning to face her under a streetlight wreathed in evergreen garland. "Speaking of hope, I got you something." He pulled a small box from his coat pocket. "Not a ring box," Lena noted with relief. "Something larger." She took it with curious hands and opened it to find a delicate silver necklace with a small pendant, 2 interlocking circles, one slightly larger than the other. It represents you and the baby, Lucien explained. Connected, protected. The larger circle surrounding the smaller one. Tears pricked at Lena's eyes. It's beautiful. May I? He gestured to the necklace. She nodded, turning around and lifting her hair. His fingers were gentle as he fastened the clasp, the pendant settling warm against her skin just above her heart. Thank you, she whispered, turning back to face him. You're welcome. He was standing very close now, close enough that she could see the flecks of darker gray in his pale eyes, could smell his cologne mixed with the winter air. Lena, yes? I need you to know something. His voice was serious, intent. What I feel for you, it's not obligation, not charity, not some rescue fantasy. What is it then? He lifted one hand, cupping her face with a gentleness that made her breath catch. It's real. You're the first real thing I've had in years, and I know it's too soon. I know you're not ready, but I need you to know. I'm falling in love with you too, she interrupted. Lucien's eyes widened. You are? I think I started the night we met in the park. When you saw me. Really saw me. Not just the mask I wore. She placed her hand over his, holding it against her cheek. You terrify me, Lucien. The intensity of what you make me feel. But I'm tired of being afraid. I would never hurt you. I know. That's what terrifies me most. That I believe you. He leaned forward slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. But Lena didn't move. Didn't want to move. When his lips touched hers, it was soft and careful and full of promise. The kiss was nothing like the desperate passion of early romance. It was something better. Something that tasted like safety and certainty and a future she was only beginning to imagine. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Lena laughed, surprised and delighted by the joy bubbling up inside her. What? Lucien asked, smiling. I just realized I'm happy. Actually, genuinely happy. She shook her head in wonder. I didn't think I'd ever feel this way again. Get used to it. He pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her as they stood beneath the holiday lights. I plan to make you happy for a very long time. Is that a promise? It's a guarantee. They walked home hand in hand, and when they reached her apartment, their apartment really, since Lucien had been staying there more nights than not, he didn't go to the guest room. Instead, he followed her to her bedroom, and they lay together fully clothed on top of the covers, just holding each other. Tell me about the future, Lena said into the darkness. What do you see? Lucien's hand traced lazy circles on her shoulder. I see you finishing your degree online, maybe becoming a teacher like you always wanted. I see a nursery full of light and laughter. I see Sunday mornings making pancakes while a toddler runs around causing chaos. I see us, together, building something real. That sounds perfect. What do you see? Lena thought for a moment, her hand resting on her belly where their future was growing. I see safety, love, a family that chooses each other every day, not just once. She turned to look at him. I see you holding our daughter for the first time and knowing she's loved beyond measure. Our daughter? His voice caught slightly. If you want that, if you want to be, I want everything with you, Lucien said fiercely. I want to be there when she's born, want to change diapers at 3 a.m. and teach her to ride a bike and scare away her first boyfriend. I want to give her my name and my protection and all the love I have. She's not biologically yours. Biology doesn't make a father. Choice does. Showing up does. Love does. He pressed his forehead against hers. Let me be her father, Lena. Let me be the one who's there. Yes. The word came out as barely more than a breath. Yes, please. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, two broken people finding wholeness in unexpected places. Outside, the city hummed with life and possibility. Inside, Lena felt peace settle over her like a blanket. The past was finally, truly behind her. And the future, their future, was just beginning. Christmas arrived wrapped in fresh snow and the kind of hope Lena had forgotten existed. She woke on Christmas morning to find Lucien already awake beside her, watching her with those pale gray eyes that had become her favorite thing to see first thing each day. Merry Christmas, he said softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Merry Christmas. She stretched, her hand automatically going to her belly, where the baby was more active now, moving and kicking with increasing frequency. At 18 weeks, she was undeniably showing, her body changing in ways that should have terrified her, but instead filled her with wonder. "I have something for you," Lucien said, sitting up and reaching for the nightstand. "We said no gifts." I lied. He handed her a small wrapped box, and Lena's heart skipped. This time it was ring-sized. Her hands trembled as she opened it, revealing not an engagement ring, but something even more meaningful, a key on a simple silver chain. "It's to my place," Lucien explained. "The penthouse on the top floor. I want you to have access to everything I have, Lena. My home, my life, all of it." She turned the key over in her fingers, understanding the symbolism. "You're giving me the ability to walk into your world whenever I want. I'm giving you the choice to be part of it. No pressure, no expectations, just an open door." He took her hand. "But I'm hoping you'll use it. Maybe even consider moving up there with me. More space for the baby, better view, and I'd get to wake up next to you every morning officially instead of just camping out here." Lena laughed through sudden tears. "You're not camping out. You basically live here already." "Exactly. So why not make it official? Move in with me. Let me take care of you both properly." "I have a gift for you too," she said instead of answering, reaching into her own nightstand drawer. "It's not as grand as a penthouse key, but..." She handed him a small photo in a simple frame. The ultrasound from her last appointment, but this one was special. Clear enough to show features, to see the baby's profile, tiny hands, perfect little feet. "That's our daughter," Lena whispered. "Dr. Chen confirmed it last week. I wanted to wait to tell you in person." Lucien stared at the image, his expression transforming into something raw and vulnerable. A girl. A girl. Healthy and strong and growing perfectly. She placed her hand over his. "I've been thinking about names. What do you think of Sophia?" "Sophia," he repeated, testing it. "What does it mean?" "Wisdom. I looked it up. Figured she'll need wisdom growing up with us." Lena smiled. "Sophia Rose. Rose was my grandmother's name, the only family member who ever really understood me. Sophia Rose Moretti." Lucien said it like a prayer, like a promise. Then his eyes widened. "Wait, Moretti? If you still want that, if you still want to be her father." He set the ultrasound picture down carefully and pulled Lena into his arms, holding her so tight she could feel his heart racing against her chest. "I want that more than anything. I want to give her my name, my protection, everything I have." "Then she's yours." Lena pulled back to look at him. "And so am I. Yes, I'll move in with you. Yes, I'll let you take care of us. Yes, to all of it." The kiss he gave her was different from their previous ones, deeper, more certain, full of commitment and future. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Lucien rested his forehead against hers. "I love you," he said. "I know it's fast. I know we're doing everything backward. But I love you, Lena. You and Sophia both." "I love you too." And saying it felt like coming home. They spent Christmas Day in the penthouse, and Lena understood immediately why Lucien wanted them there. The space was massive. 3 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking all of Manhattan, a kitchen that belonged in a magazine, and room upon room that begged to be filled with life and laughter. The room next to the master would be perfect for Sophia, Lucien said, leading her through the space. "It gets morning sun, and it's close enough that we'd hear her at night." Lena stood in the empty room, imagining it painted soft colors, filled with a crib and changing table and all the things their daughter would need. "It's perfect. And this room," he opened another door, "could be your office for when you start your degree program." She'd mentioned wanting to go back to school exactly once, weeks ago. The fact that he'd remembered, that he'd planned space for it, made her throat tight with emotion. "You think of everything." "I try." He wrapped his arms around her from behind, his hand settling protectively over her belly. "I want you to have everything you've ever dreamed of, Lena. Education, career, family, all of it. I just want us to be happy." "Then we will be. I'll make sure of it." They moved her things the following week, though there wasn't much to move. Her few possessions looked even more lost in the penthouse than they had in the Tribeca apartment. But Lucian filled the gaps, taking her shopping for furniture and clothes and all the things she'd never been able to afford. "This is too much," Lena protested as he added another dress to their growing pile. "It's not nearly enough." He held up a soft cashmere sweater in deep green. "This would look beautiful on you, and it's comfortable for pregnancy." "Lucien, let me do this, please." His eyes were serious. "I have more money than I know what to do with, Lena. Let me spend it on you, on our daughter. Let me give you the life you deserve." She wanted to argue, wanted to maintain some independence, some sense that she wasn't just being kept. But the truth was simpler and more complicated than that. He wasn't trying to control her with money. He was trying to show love the only way he knew how, through providing, protecting, ensuring she never struggled again. "Okay," she said softly, "but I get to pick out your clothes next time. You need more casual wear. Not everything needs to be a $1,000 suit." His laugh was warm. "Deal." They settled into a rhythm that felt both new and ancient, like they'd been doing this dance forever. Lucien worked from home more often, his office in the penthouse becoming mission control for his various businesses. Lena enrolled in online classes, starting the education degree she'd always wanted. They cooked together, cleaned together, existed in each other's space with surprising ease. "Tell me about your day," became their evening ritual, curled up on the massive couch overlooking the city. "Boring corporate stuff mostly," Lucien would say. Negotiated a new contract for the security firm. Had to convince a client that threatening his ex-wife's new boyfriend was not, in fact, a good use of my services. "Did you convince him?" "Eventually. After I showed him the photos of the boyfriend volunteering at a children's hospital and coaching Little League. Hard to justify intimidating someone who's genuinely good." "What did you do instead?" "Suggested therapy and helped him find a good lawyer for the divorce settlement. Sometimes the best conflict resolution is preventing the conflict entirely." Lena loved these glimpses into his world, the way he navigated complicated moral waters with surprising integrity. He wasn't perfect, would never claim to be, but he tried to be good. That mattered more than she'd expected. January brought bitter cold and Lena's 20-week anatomy scan. Lucien took the day off work, something he rarely did, and sat holding her hand in Dr. Chen's office while the ultrasound wand moved across her swelling belly. "Everything looks perfect," Dr. Chen announced, pointing to various parts of the screen. "Strong heartbeat, all organs developing normally, good amniotic fluid levels. Sophia is thriving." "Can we hear the heartbeat?" Lucien asked, his voice rough with emotion. "Doctor." Chen adjusted the machine, and suddenly the room filled with the rapid swoosh, swoosh, swoosh of their daughter's heart. Lena watched Lucian's face transform, saw tears gather in his eyes even as he smiled. "That's her," he whispered. "That's our girl." "That's our girl," Lena agreed. They left the appointment with new ultrasound photos and a DVD of the whole scan. That night, Lucien watched it 3 times, pausing on frames where Sophia's face was clearest, studying every detail like he was memorizing her. "I can't wait to meet her," he said as they lay in bed, his hand resting on Lena's belly where the baby kicked and rolled. 4 more months. Feels like forever. Feels like not enough time, Lena's voice caught. "I'm terrified, Lucien. What if I'm a terrible mother? What if I don't know what to do?" "Then we'll figure it out together. You think I have any idea how to be a father?" He shifted to face her fully. "We're both going to make mistakes, but we'll make them together, and we'll love her through all of it. That's what matters. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll always be honest with me, even when it's hard, even when the truth is ugly." She thought of Adrian, of all his lies and half-truths. "I can handle anything except being lied to." Lucian's expression went serious. "I promise. Complete honesty always. But you have to promise me the same thing." "I do?" "Then ask me now. Whatever you've been wondering about my work, about my past, about the parts of my life I haven't fully explained, ask, and I'll tell you the truth." Lena took a breath, gathering courage. "The gray areas you mentioned, the conflict resolution. Have you ever seriously hurt someone?" "Yes." No hesitation. 3 times in my life. Once when I was 17 and stupid, defending territory that didn't matter. Once when I was 22 and someone tried to assault a woman who worked for me. And once 2 years ago, when a client's husband wouldn't accept that the marriage was over and kept escalating. How badly? First time, broken ribs and a concussion. Second time, shattered kneecap. Third time, broken jaw and some missing teeth. His voice was steady, factual. I'm not proud of the violence, Lena, but I'm not ashamed either. Sometimes it's necessary to stop worse harm. She absorbed this, turning it over in her mind. And now? Would you do it again? If someone threatened you or Sophia, without hesitation, his eyes were fierce. I'd burn the world down to keep you both safe. That's the truth. That's who I am. I should be horrified. But you're not. No. And she wasn't. Maybe that made her broken too, or maybe it just made her realistic. I've seen what happens when good people do nothing, when systems fail and monsters walk free. If you're willing to be the thing that stands between innocent people and harm, then I can live with that. Even knowing I'm not always on the right side of the law isn't always on the right side of justice. She took his hand, placing it on her belly where Sophia was moving. I trust you, Lucien. I trust your judgment and your heart. That's enough. He kissed her then, deep and grateful, and Lena felt the last of her reservations crumble. This was her life now. This complicated, powerful man and the family they were building together. February brought Valentine's Day and an unexpected visitor. Lena was home alone, Lucien at a meeting across town, when the building's doorman called up. Miss Morales, there's a woman here claiming to be your sister. Carmen Walker? Lena's heart leaped. Send her up. She opened the door to find Carmen standing in the hallway, looking uncertain and out of place in her sensible mom jeans and Arizona Cardinals sweatshirt. Her older sister had the same dark hair and eyes, but where Lena was fine-boned and delicate, Carmen was sturdy and practical. Lena. Carmen's eyes went immediately to Lena's pregnant belly, now impossible to hide at 24 weeks. Oh my goodness, look at you. Hi, Carmen. Lena stepped back, letting her sister into the penthouse. What are you doing here? I was in New York for a conference. Educational administration stuff. Thought I'd surprise you. Carmen's eyes swept the space, widening. This is where you live? With my boyfriend, yes. Boyfriend, right. Carmen set down her bag, her expression carefully neutral. Mom said you'd moved on fast. Found some rich guy to take care of you. Lena bristled. Is that what she said? Her words were less kind, actually, but I told her to mind her own business. Carmen moved closer, her voice softening. I'm sorry, Lena, for not being there when Adrian left, for letting Mom's judgment keep me from reaching out. You're here now. I am, and I want to meet this man who has my little sister living in a penthouse. Carmen's smile was tentative. If that's okay. He's at a meeting, but he'll be back soon. Lena gestured to the couch. Want some tea? I can't have coffee anymore, but I've become a tea expert. They sat in the living room, and Lena watched her sister's eyes catalog everything. The expensive furniture, the art on the walls, the view of Manhattan spreading out below them. This is really your life now, Carmen said quietly. It's so different from being broke and struggling. Yes, it is. I was going to say different from what we grew up with, but yeah, that too. Carmen accepted the tea Lena handed her. Tell me about him. This Lucien. Lena found herself talking, really talking, for the first time in years with her sister. She explained how they met, how he'd helped her, how slowly and carefully they'd built trust and then love. She didn't mention the gray areas of his work, but she didn't hide that he was powerful either. He sounds intense, Carmen said when Lena finally paused. He is, but he's also kind. Patient. He sees me, Carmen, really sees me, not just as someone to take care of or fix, but as a partner. And the baby? He's really going to raise her as his own? Her name is Sophia Rose, and yes, he wants to be her father in every way that matters. Lena's hand went to her belly. Adrian signed away his rights. Lucien's going to legally adopt her once she's born. Carmen was quiet for a long moment. I judged you. When Mom told me you were pregnant and living with some new guy. I thought you were being reckless, desperate. I was desperate. That's how this started. But it's not how it is now. I can see that. The way you talk about him. You love him. I do. More than I thought I could love anyone after Adrian. The elevator chimed and Lucien stepped into the penthouse, stopping short when he saw they had a visitor. His eyes went immediately to Lena, checking that she was okay, before turning to Carmen with polite curiosity. "You must be Carmen," he said, moving forward with his hand extended. "I'm Lucien Moretti." Carmen stood, shaking his hand. Lena watched her sister take in Lucien's height, his expensive suit, the aura of controlled power he radiated even in casual greeting. "Nice to meet you," Carmen said. "I was just in town and thought I'd surprise my sister." "I'm glad you did. Family's important." Lucien settled onto the couch beside Lena, his hand immediately finding hers. "How long are you in New York?" "Just until tomorrow. Conference ends tonight." "Then you'll stay for dinner. I insist." It wasn't really a request, and from the slight smile on Carmen's face, she recognized that. "Lena, what do you think? Should I cook or should we order from that Italian place you love?" "You cook," Lena said. "Show off a little." His laugh was warm. "Trying to impress your family already. You don't need to try. You just need to be yourself." Dinner was surprisingly easy. Lucien made pasta from scratch, moving around the kitchen with practiced ease, while Carmen helped Lena set the table. They talked about Carmen's kids, 2 boys, 8 and 6, about her work as a school principal in Phoenix, about everything except the elephant in the room. Finally, over tiramisu that Lucien had somehow also made from scratch, Carmen addressed it directly. "I need to say something, and I need you both to hear it." She looked between them. "Lena, I'm sorry. For not being there when you needed me. For letting Mom's opinions matter more than your happiness. You deserved better from me." "Carmen, let me finish." Her sister's voice was firm. "And Lucien, thank you for taking care of my sister when her own family didn't. For giving her and Sophia a safe place to land. I don't know you well, but I can see you love her. That's enough for me." Lucien's expression softened. "All I want is to make her happy. And to give Sophia the kind of childhood where she never doubts she's loved." "Then we're on the same page," Carmen raised her wine glass. "To new beginnings and chosen family." They clinked glasses, Lena's sparkling water meeting the other's wine, and something tight in Lena's chest finally loosened. She had her sister back. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough. After Carmen left the next morning with promises to visit after the baby came, Lena found herself crying in Lucien's arms for no reason she could articulate. "Hormones," she said when he asked what was wrong. "Or relief," he suggested gently. "You don't have to be strong all the time, Lena. You can let yourself feel things." "I feel everything lately. Happy, sad, terrified, excited, all at once." "That's normal. You're growing a human and building a new life simultaneously. That's a lot." She pulled back to look at him. "Do you ever regret this? Taking on someone else's mess?" "You're not a mess. You're a miracle." He cupped her face in his hands. "And no, I don't regret anything. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me, Lena. You and Sophia both." March arrived with unexpected warmth in Lena's baby shower, organized by Dr. Chen and attended by the few friends she'd managed to make. Neighbors from the building, women from her online classes, Carmen, who flew in from Phoenix. Lucien stayed scarce during the actual shower, claiming it was women's territory, but Lena knew he was working behind the scenes. The catering was too perfect, the decorations too elegant, the gifts too generous to be anything but his careful orchestration. "He's a keeper," one of her neighbors said, watching through the window as Lucien directed the setup crew. "If you ever get tired of him, send him my way." Lena laughed, her hand on her belly where Sophia was doing what felt like gymnastics. "Not a chance." That night, surrounded by baby clothes and toys and equipment she didn't know how to use yet, Lena felt the weight of impending motherhood settle over her like a blanket. "What if I can't do this?" she asked as Lucien helped her sort through onesies. "Then we'll hire help, a nanny, a nurse, whatever you need." "That's not what I mean. What if I'm not enough?" "Well, what if she needs more than I can give?" Lucien set down the tiny outfit he was holding and pulled Lena into his arms. "Listen to me. You are going to be an amazing mother. You're patient, kind, strong, resilient. Sophia is lucky to have you." "We're lucky to have you." "I'm the lucky one." He kissed the top of her head. 2 months until we meet her. Are you ready?" "No, yes, I don't know." Lena laughed, verging on tears again. "Ask me in 2 months. I'll be here either way, ready or not, terrified or confident, falling apart or holding it together. I'll be right here beside you. Promise? On my life. April brought cherry blossoms and a sudden crisis. Lena woke at 3 a.m. to Lucien's phone ringing, his terse conversation in the darkness, the way he dressed quickly with military precision. I have to go, he said, seeing her awake. Business emergency. What kind of emergency? He hesitated, and she saw the war in his eyes, the desire to protect her versus the promise of honesty. A client's daughter was taken. Kidnapping situation. They called me instead of the police. Lena's blood ran cold. Lucien, I'll be careful. I have people, resources. We'll get her back. He kissed Lena quickly, fiercely. I'll call you as soon as I can. Don't worry. But she did worry. Spent the whole day pacing the penthouse, her hand on her belly, imagining all the ways this could go wrong. This was the other side of Lucien's world, the dangerous side she'd agreed to accept, but hadn't fully understood until now. He called at noon. We have her. She's safe. And you? I'm fine. Couple bruises, nothing serious, a pause. I'm sorry I scared you. Just come home. On my way. He arrived an hour later, and Lena saw immediately that nothing serious was relative. His knuckles were split and swollen, a bruise darkening along his jaw, and he moved carefully like his ribs hurt. Lucien. The girl is safe with her family. The men who took her are in police custody. It's over. He let her lead him to the couch, sinking down with a barely suppressed wince. I kept my promise. I was careful. This is careful. She gestured to his injuries. Compared to what it could have been, yes. He caught her hand, pressing it to his chest where his heart beat strong and steady. I'm okay, Lena. I promise. She wanted to be angry, wanted to yell at him for risking himself, for leaving her alone and terrified. But looking at him now, exhausted and battered but satisfied that he'd saved someone, she understood. This was who he was. The man who stood between monsters and their victims, who got his hands dirty so others could stay clean. Don't ever lie to me about how dangerous something is, she said finally. If I'm going to be part of your life, I need to know the truth. All of it. Deal. But you have to do the same. No hiding when you're scared or upset or having second thoughts. I'm not having second thoughts. But you're scared. Terrified, she admitted, of losing you, of Sophia growing up without a father, of this whole life we're building falling apart. Lucien pulled her carefully onto his lap, mindful of her belly. It won't fall apart. I won't let it. Yes, my work is dangerous sometimes, but I'm careful, I'm smart, and I always come home. Always. You can't promise that. Watch me. His voice was steel wrapped in velvet. I have too much to live for now. You, Sophia, the future we're building. I'm not leaving you, Lena. Not for anything. She wanted to believe him, chose to believe him, because the alternative, living in constant fear, was no way to live at all. That night she helped him shower, carefully washing dried blood from his knuckles, pressing ice to his bruised ribs. And when they finally lay in bed, exhausted and sore and relieved, Sophia kicked hard enough that Lucien felt it through Lena's belly. She's strong, he said, wonder in his voice. She's a fighter, like her father. And her mother. He pressed a kiss to Lena's shoulder. Thank you for not running, for staying even when it got scary. Where else would I go? You're my home now, you and Sophia both. Then let's make it official. Lucien shifted, reaching for his nightstand drawer. I was going to wait, do this properly with dinner and romance and all the things you deserve, but I can't wait anymore. He pulled out a small velvet box, and Lena's heart stopped. Marry me, he said, opening it to reveal a stunning ring, a sapphire surrounded by diamonds, elegant and unique and perfect. Not because you need my protection or my money, not because you're pregnant, but because I love you and I want to spend the rest of my life proving it. Marry me, Lena. She looked at the ring, at his battered face, at the absolute certainty in his eyes, and she thought about everything they'd been through, all the ways he'd shown up for her, the future they were already building together. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. The ring slid onto her finger like it was made for her, and when Lucien kissed her, Lena tasted salt, His tears or hers, she wasn't sure. Maybe both. They were really doing this. Building a family, making a life, choosing each other every single day. And despite everything, despite the danger and the complications and the unconventional way they'd found each other, Lena had never been more certain of anything in her life. The engagement ring caught the morning light as Lena made coffee, sending small rainbows dancing across the kitchen walls. 2 weeks had passed since Lucien proposed, and she still found herself staring at it in wonder, turning her hand this way and that to watch the sapphire gleam. "You're going to wear it out from looking at it so much," Lucien said from the doorway, already dressed for the day in charcoal slacks and a crisp white shirt. "It's beautiful, I can't help it." She handed him his coffee, accepting his kiss in return. "What's on your schedule today?" "Meeting with the lawyers about the adoption paperwork. Want to make sure everything's ready for when Sophia arrives." His hand settled on her belly, now round and prominent at 36 weeks. "How are you feeling?" "Heavy, tired, ready for her to be here." Lena leaned into him. "Dr. Chen says any day now. She could come early." "Then I'm clearing my schedule for the next month. Nothing matters more than being here when she arrives." "Lucien, you can't just stop working. Watch me." His voice was firm but gentle. "I've spent years building businesses that run themselves. Time to let them prove it. You and Sophia are my priority now." They'd had this conversation multiple times over the past few weeks, but Lena still marveled at how easily he restructured his entire life around their growing family. Most men she knew barely took a few days off when their children were born. Lucien was planning to be present for everything. The morning passed quietly. Lena worked on final assignments for her spring semester classes, while Lucien handled phone calls and video conferences from his home office. They'd fallen into this rhythm effortlessly, separate but together, independent but connected. Around noon, Lena felt the first twinge. Not painful, just a tightening across her belly that made her pause. She waited, counting, but it didn't come again right away. Braxton Hicks, probably. She'd been having them for weeks. 30 minutes later, another one, stronger this time. An hour after that, another. By 3 p.m., they were coming regularly enough that Lena pulled out her phone and started timing them. 12 minutes apart. Then 10, then 8. "Lucien?" She appeared in his office doorway, her hand pressed to her lower back where a deep ache had started to build. "I think this might be it." He was on his feet instantly, his professional demeanor vanishing into something raw and almost panicked. "You're in labor?" "Maybe. Contractions are getting closer together, 8 minutes apart now." "We should go to the hospital." Dr. Chen said to wait until they're 5 minutes apart or my water breaks. Another contraction rolled through her, and Lena breathed through it, gripping the doorframe. "But you should probably call her. Let her know it's starting." Lucien made the call while simultaneously gathering the hospital bag they'd packed weeks ago, moving with controlled efficiency even though Lena could see the fear and excitement warring in his eyes. "Doctor, Chen says to keep timing them and call back when they're 5 minutes apart, or if anything changes," he reported, setting the bag by the door. "What do you need? Water? Food? Should you be sitting down?" "I need you to breathe," Lena said, even as another contraction made her own breathing shallow. "And maybe walk with me. Movement is supposed to help." They walked circuits around the penthouse, Lucien's arm steady around her waist, his phone in his other hand timing each contraction with military precision. 7 minutes, 6 minutes, 5.5. "This is really happening," Lena said during a break between contractions. "We're going to meet her soon." "Are you scared?" "Terrified. You?" "More than I've ever been in my life." His laugh was shaky. "I've faced down armed men without breaking a sweat. But this is terrifying." 5 minutes, 4.5. 4. "Time to go," Lucien said, and there was no arguing with the authority in his voice. The drive to the hospital was surreal. Manhattan traffic parted around the car like Lucien had called in favors, which he probably had. Lena focused on breathing through contractions that were coming faster now, harder, each one cresting like a wave that threatened to pull her under. "You're doing great," Lucien kept saying, his hand never leaving hers. "So strong, so brave, we're almost there." Dr. Chen met them in the maternity ward, already scrubbed and ready. "How are we doing, Lena?" "Contractions every 3 minutes. They hurt." An understatement. The pain was becoming all-consuming, blotting out everything except the need to breathe, to survive, to get through this. The examination confirmed what Lena already knew. She was in active labor, already 6 centimeters dilated. Things were moving fast. "Looks like Sophia's eager to meet you, doctor," Chen said with a warm smile. "Let's get you settled in a delivery room." The next hours blurred together in a haze of pain and pressure and Lucien's steady presence. He never left her side, holding her hand through contractions, letting her squeeze until his fingers turned white, wiping sweat from her forehead with cool cloths. "I can't do this," Lena gasped during a particularly brutal contraction. "It's too much." "You can. You are." He pressed his forehead to hers, his voice low and fierce. "You're the strongest person I know. You've survived so much worse than this. You can do this. Promise you won't leave?" "I'm not going anywhere. Not now, not ever." Somewhere around hour 8, when Lena was sure she couldn't take another moment, Dr. Chen's voice cut through the fog. "You're fully dilated. Time to push." What followed was the hardest work of Lena's life. Every push felt impossible, every breath of victory. But Lucien was there, counting her through each one, telling her how amazing she was, how close they were to meeting their daughter. "I can see her head," Dr. Chen announced. "One more big push, Lena. You can do this." Lena gathered every ounce of strength she had left and pushed with everything in her. The world narrowed to this single moment, this singular purpose, bringing her daughter safely into the world. And then, suddenly, relief. Release. The sound of crying filling the room. "She's here," Dr. Chen said, lifting a tiny, squirming baby into view. Sophia rose. "Meet your parents." Lena watched through tears as they cleaned and wrapped their daughter, this perfect little person who'd been growing inside her for 9 months. When Dr. Chen placed Sophia on her chest, skin to skin, Lena felt her heart break open in ways she hadn't known were possible. "Hi, baby girl," she whispered. "We've been waiting for you." Sophia had a cap of dark hair, Lena's nose, and lungs that proclaimed her displeasure at being born with impressive volume. She was perfect. Absolutely, impossibly perfect. "Can I hold her?" Lucien's voice was rough with emotion. Lena looked up to see tears streaming down his face unashamedly. She'd seen this man face down danger without flinching, but the sight of his daughter had completely undone him. "Of course, doctor." Chen helped transfer Sophia to Lucien's arms, showing him how to support her head. Lena watched Lucien hold their daughter for the first time and saw something transform in him. The hardness that usually lived around his eyes softened. The controlled power that defined him gentled into something tender and protective. "Hello, Sophia," he said softly. "I'm your daddy. I've been waiting so long to meet you." Sophia stopped crying at the sound of his voice, her tiny face scrunching as she tried to focus on him. One miniature hand wrapped around his finger, and Lucien made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. "She's so small." 7 pounds, 4 ounces, Dr. Chen reported. "Perfect APGAR scores. She's healthy and strong." "She's everything." Lucien looked at Lena, and the love in his eyes was so intense it almost hurt to witness. "Thank you, for her, for trusting me, for letting me be part of this." "You're not part of this. You're everything." Lena reached for his hand, linking them together over their daughter's tiny body. "We're a family now. Really, truly a family." They stayed like that for a long moment, 3 people bound together by love and choice, and the fierce determination to protect each other always. Outside the window, Manhattan sparkled in the early morning light. Inside this room, the world had shifted on its axis. The next few days passed in a blur of feeding schedules, diaper changes, and visitors. Carmen flew in immediately, bringing Lena's mother, who'd softened considerably at the sight of her granddaughter. Even Lena's father made an awkward appearance, his gruff exterior cracking when Sophia wrapped her tiny fingers around his. "She's beautiful, mija," her mother said, holding Sophia with the practiced ease of someone who'd raised 2 daughters. "And this man of yours, he's good to you?" "The best," Lena confirmed. Her mother looked at Lucien, who was organizing flowers from well-wishers with the same precision he applied to everything. "You'll take care of them? Both of them?" "With my life," Lucien said simply. Something passed between them, an understanding and acceptance. Her mother nodded once, satisfied. Then we'll visit more often. Family should be close. It wasn't a full reconciliation, but it was a start, more than Lena had hoped for. They brought Sophia home on a sunny May morning, and Lena felt her throat tighten as they carried their daughter into the penthouse for the first time. The nursery was ready, painted the softest yellow, filled with everything a baby could need. Lucienne had been preparing for weeks, making sure every detail was perfect. "Welcome home, sweet girl," Lena whispered, settling Sophia into her crib. That night, after Sophia had been fed and changed and was sleeping peacefully, Lena and Lucien collapsed onto their bed in exhausted wonder. "We have a daughter," Lucien said, like he still couldn't quite believe it. "We really do." Lena turned to face him. "Are you ready for this? The sleepless nights, the constant worry, the complete upheaval of everything we've known?" "I've never been more ready for anything." He pulled her close, careful of her still healing body. "This is what I've been waiting for my whole life without knowing it. You, Sophia, this family we're building. I love you. I love you too, both of you, more than I have words for." Sophia's cry cut through the tender moment, demanding and insistent. Lena started to get up, but Lucienne was faster. "I've got her. You rest." She watched him go to their daughter, lifting Sophia with the careful reverence he'd shown since the moment she was born. His deep voice murmured soothing words as he changed her diaper, checked her temperature, did all the things the nurses had taught them. This was her life now. This man, this baby, this impossible family that had formed from the wreckage of her worst moments. And it was perfect. The adoption paperwork was finalized in June on a bright Tuesday morning in family court. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s who'd clearly seen everything, reviewed the documents with meticulous care. "Mr. Moretti, you understand that adoption is permanent? That you're taking full legal and financial responsibility for this child?" "I do, Your Honor, and I want that more than anything." "Miss Morales, you're certain this is what you want? You're surrendering the birth father's rights and allowing Mr. Moretti to adopt?" "Completely certain." Lena's voice was strong. "Lucien has been Sophia's father from the moment she was born. This just makes it legal." The judge studied them both, her expression softening slightly. "I've reviewed the home study reports, the financial statements, the character references. Everything is in order." She picked up her pen. "I'm happy to grant this adoption. Sophia Rose Morales will now be Sophia Rose Moretti, with all the rights and protections that entails." The gavel came down, and it was done. Official, legal, permanent. Outside the courthouse, Lucien held Sophia, now officially his daughter, and looked at Lena with eyes full of emotion. "She's mine. Really, legally, mine. She's ours." Lena leaned into him, completing their family unit. "And she always will be." They celebrated with lunch at the same restaurant where they'd had their first real conversation months ago. Sophia slept peacefully in her carrier while Lena and Lucien toasted with champagne and sparkling cider. "To new beginnings," Lucien said. "To family," Lena countered. "To us." They set a wedding date for August, wanting to give Lena time to recover fully from childbirth and adjust to motherhood. The ceremony was small and intimate. Just family and close friends gathered in the penthouse with views of the city spreading out below them. Carmen stood as Lena's maid of honor, holding 3-month-old Sophia, while Lena walked herself down the makeshift aisle. She wore a simple ivory dress, her dark hair loose, the sapphire engagement ring catching the light. Lucien waited at the end in a perfectly tailored navy suit, his eyes locked on her with such intensity that Lena felt it like a physical touch. When she reached him, he took her hands and she saw they were trembling slightly. "Nervous?" she whispered. "Terrified I'll wake up and this will all be a dream." The officiant cleared his throat, beginning the ceremony, but Lena barely heard the traditional words. She was too focused on Lucien, on the vows they were about to make, on the reality of everything they'd built together. "Do you, Lucien Moretti, take Lena Morales to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do." His voice was steady now, certain. "I absolutely do." "And do you, Lena Morales, take Lucien Moretti to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Lena thought about the broken woman who'd bought a pregnancy test in a fluorescent-lit pharmacy less than a year ago. thought about the desperate nights, the fear, the certainty that her life was over. And she thought about everything that had happened since. The way Lucien had seen her when she felt invisible, the way he'd protected her without controlling her, the way he'd chosen to love both her and Sophia with a fierceness that still took her breath away. "I do," she said, her voice ringing clear. "With everything I am, I do." The kiss when it came was sweet and certain and full of promise. Sophia chose that moment to wake up and start fussing, her cries cutting through the romantic moment with perfect comedic timing. "That's our daughter," Lucien laughed, breaking the kiss to take Sophia from Carmen, already demanding attention. "She takes after her father," Lena teased. The small reception that followed was full of laughter and joy. Lena's parents stayed close, her mother helping with Sophia while her father made awkward attempts at conversation with Lucien that gradually grew easier. "You take care of my daughter," he told Lucien gruffly. "Every day of my life," Lucien promised. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Lena found herself standing at the window with Sophia in her arms, looking out at the city that had witnessed her lowest moment and her greatest triumph. "What are you thinking?" Lucien asked, coming to stand beside her. "That a year ago I was alone and terrified, and now I have everything I ever wanted." She looked up at him. "How did we get here?" "You were brave enough to accept help. I was lucky enough to find you." He wrapped his arms around both of them. "And we chose each other. Every single day we keep choosing each other." "And Sophia." "And Sophia," he agreed, pressing a kiss to their daughter's downy head. The months that followed were full of the beautiful chaos of new parenthood. Sleepless nights when Sophia refused to settle, triumphant mornings when she slept for 4 hours straight, first smiles that made every difficult moment worth it, first laughs that sounded like pure joy distilled into sound. Lena finished her online degree in December, crossing the virtual stage while Sophia napped and Lucien cheered from the couch. She started looking at teaching positions for the following fall, wanting to use her education to help others the way she wished someone had helped her. Lucien gradually shifted his businesses toward more legitimate ventures. The conflict resolution services became consulting. The gray areas became clearly defined ethics. He was still powerful, still dangerous when necessary, but increasingly focused on building rather than fighting. "I want Sophia to be proud of what I do," he explained one night as they discussed another business restructuring. "Want her to grow up knowing her father built things instead of just breaking them." "She'll be proud of you no matter what," Lena assured him. "Because you're a good man who loves his family. That's what matters." On Sophia's first birthday, they threw a party that filled the penthouse with balloons and laughter and too many presents. Carmen brought her boys, who immediately claimed their cousin as the best baby ever. Lena's parents came, her mother spending most of the party in the kitchen with Lena teaching her old family recipes. "I'm sorry," her mother said quietly as they worked, "for not being there when you needed me, for judging instead of supporting." "I know, Mama. It's okay." "No, it's not. But I want to do better. Want to be the grandmother Sophia deserves, the mother you needed." Lena hugged her, tears in both their eyes. "You're here now. That's what counts." That night, after everyone had left and Sophia was asleep in her crib surrounded by new toys, Lena and Lucien sat together in the nursery watching their daughter sleep. "She's getting so big," Lena whispered. "She is, growing up too fast." "Think we should give her a sibling?" Lucien's head whipped around to stare at her. "Are you saying, not yet, but eventually, maybe?" Lena smiled. "If you want more kids, I want everything with you. As many children as you want to have. As much life and love and chaos as we can handle." He pulled her close. "Thank you for giving me this. A family. A purpose beyond just surviving. Thank you for seeing me when I felt invisible. For loving me when I thought I was unlovable. For choosing us." They sat in comfortable silence, watching their daughter sleep, and Lena marveled at how far they'd come, from that first desperate night in the park to this moment of perfect peace. 2 years later, Lena stood in her classroom at PS 118 in Brooklyn, helping second graders with their reading assignments. Teaching had turned out to be everything she'd hoped, challenging, rewarding, a way to make a real difference in young lives. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lucien. "Sophia and I are making dinner, spaghetti, mostly edible. Come home soon. We miss you." The attached photo showed their daughter, now 3 years old, with Lena's dark curls and Lucien's pale gray eyes, covered in tomato sauce and grinning widely. Lucien was in the background, equally messy, laughing. Lena's heart swelled with love so fierce it almost hurt. This was her life now, she teaching children who needed her, coming home to a man who cherished her, raising a daughter who knew nothing but love and security. She thought occasionally about Adrian, wondered how his life had turned out. But those thoughts came rarely now, and with no bitterness. He'd been a chapter in her story, not the whole book. And honestly, she was grateful. Without his betrayal, she never would have found Lucy Yen, never would have built this beautiful, complicated, perfect life. That evening, she walked into the penthouse to chaos. Sophia running in circles with sauce-covered hands, Lucien chasing her with a wet washcloth, both of them laughing hysterically. "Mommy!" Sophia launched herself at Lena, who caught her despite the mess. "We made pasta." "I see that. You're wearing most of it." "Daddy says we're artists." "Daddy says a lot of things," Lena laughed, meeting Lucien's eyes over their daughter's head. He crossed to her, kissing her deeply despite their audience. "How was work?" "Good. Productive. But I'm glad to be home." "We're glad you're home too." He took Sophia from her arms. "Come on, little monster. Bath time before this sauce becomes permanent." Lena watched them go, heard Sophia's delighted shrieks as Lucien chased her toward the bathroom. Then she looked around the penthouse. Toys scattered across expensive rugs, children's books mixed with business journals, photos of their family covering every surface. It was messy and chaotic, and absolutely nothing like the life she'd imagined for herself. It was perfect. That night, after Sophia was clean and fed and tucked into bed with her favorite stuffed elephant, Lena and Lucien finally had their dinner. The spaghetti was actually pretty good, despite the kitchen disaster it had created. "Sophia asked me today if she could have a little brother or sister," Lucien said casually over wine. Lena nearly choked on her pasta. "She did?" "Apparently her friend Emily is getting a baby sister, and now Sophia wants one too." He watched her carefully. "What do you think?" "I think—" Lena paused, considering. They'd talked about more children in the abstract, but never seriously. "I think I'd like that, eventually, when we're ready." "Are you happy, Lena?" The question was serious, his pale eyes searching hers. "Really, truly happy?" "More than I ever thought possible." She reached across the table for his hand. "You gave me everything, Lucien. Safety, love, family, purpose. You gave me myself back. You did that on your own. I just provided the space for you to heal. We healed each other." She squeezed his fingers. "You were as broken as I was when we met, just better at hiding it." He didn't deny it. "You made me want to be better, made me believe I could be something more than what I was. And you made me believe I deserved more than scraps of affection from people who didn't value me." They sat in the comfortable silence of people who knew each other completely, who'd seen each other at their worst and chosen to stay anyway. "I love you," Lucien said finally. "More now than when we got married, more every single day." "I love you too, both of you. This whole messy, beautiful life we've built." "To messy, beautiful lives," he toasted. "To second chances. To forever." They clinked glasses and drank, and in the nursery down the hall, Sophia slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that she was loved beyond measure by two people who'd found each other in the darkness and built something luminous together. This was their story: a waitress and a powerful man, a broken woman and a dangerous protector, a baby who'd brought them together, and a love that had saved them both. It hadn't started conventionally, hadn't followed any traditional path, but it had led them here, to this moment, to this family, to this life. And that was more than enough. It was everything. 5 years after that night in the park, Lena stood at the same bench where she'd first met Lucien. She'd come back on purpose, wanting to remember, to honor the woman she'd been and the woman she'd become. Sophia, now 8 years old and wise beyond her years, sat beside her, swinging her legs. Their son Marcus was 3 and currently being entertained by Lucien a few feet away. "Mommy, why did you want to come here?" Sophia asked. "Because this is where everything changed for me, where I met your daddy and started building our family." "Was it love at first sight?" Lena laughed. No, baby. It was fear at first sight. Terror, actually. Your daddy was very intimidating. He's not scary now. No, he's not. She looked at Lucian, who was lifting Marcus onto his shoulders, both of them laughing. But he was never really scary, just intense. He saw me when I felt invisible, helped me when I had no one else. And slowly, that turned into love. Like in fairy tales? Better than fairy tales. Because it's real. Lena pulled Sophia close. Remember this, sweetheart. Real love isn't perfect. It's messy and complicated and sometimes really hard, but it's also worth fighting for, worth choosing every single day. I will, Mommy. Lucian joined them then, Marcus still perched on his shoulders. Ready to go home? Ready, Lena confirmed, standing and taking his outstretched hand. As they walked away from the bench that had changed everything, Lena looked back once. The park looked different now, brighter somehow, less threatening. Or maybe she was the one who'd changed, probably both. She'd come to this bench broken and desperate, pregnant and alone, with nothing but fear for the future. She left it now surrounded by love, with a family she'd chosen and who'd chosen her back, with a life full of purpose and joy and belonging. The journey from there to here hadn't been easy, had required trust and courage and the willingness to risk her heart one more time when every instinct said to guard it. But standing here now, with Lucian's hand in hers and their children's laughter ringing through the air, Lena knew with absolute certainty that every moment of fear, every leap of faith, every choice to stay when running would have been easier. All of it had been worth it. She'd survived heartbreak and betrayal, had faced down her worst fears, had learned to love again when she thought that part of her was dead forever. And in return, she'd been given everything. A partner who saw her, children who adored her, a family that chose each other every day, a life that was messy and chaotic and absolutely, perfectly hers. This was her happy ending. Not because a man had rescued her, but because she'd been brave enough to save herself and wise enough to accept help along the way. This was her triumph, her victory, her life. And it was more beautiful than anything she could have imagined.